Hey there, viewers. Something strange is happening inside Beyonce's mansion, and the feds just uncovered it. No headlines, no arrests, just a silent 3 a.m. live stream and a trail of vanished people, glitched mirrors, and voices that don't belong. Whatever this is, it's not about music anymore. It's about control. And what they found will leave you speechless. Chapter 1. They didn't go in through the front. The thing I still remember the most is how quiet it was. Not just the usual big house kind of quiet. This was wrong. Like even the air had been told to shut up. We'd parked about 40 yards away behind the slope by the maintenance trail. The driveway cameras had been disabled, but not by us. That part was already done before we even arrived. That was the first thing that felt off. We'd been told we were coming in covert, not silent. So, who cut the feeds? It was 3:47 in the morning, and we were stacked outside the side entrance of the Holmby Hills property. On the documents, it was just listed as a secondary residence, under the name 1152 Associates, LLC. But everyone knew what it really was. Beyonce and Jay-Z's mansion. Massive, 3-level structure over 18,000 square feet, hidden behind smart glass walls and layered heat signature masking. People liked to call it a wellness fortress, but standing there with my hand hovering over the latch, I wasn't getting a wellness vibe. More like the house itself was listening. Waiting. I'm Officer 243. I don't use my name anymore. That's not drama, it's survival. What I saw that night, it doesn't go away. Not even in sleep. We were told it was a missing persons case. Nothing criminal, no drugs, no weapons, nothing flashy. A contractor had gone dark. His last signal pinged from the back quarter of the mansion 2 weeks prior. He wasn't press, wasn't paparazzi. He worked with a private company that serviced acoustic sensory frameworks. We were told he came in to test a system. That's it. But when we ran his badge logs, we found 1 entry in and none out. The company that sent him said he completed the job. The timestamp said he left, but the system still showed him on site. That's why we got pulled in. I keyed in the code. 6 digits. The keypad glowed a dull green. Each beep sounded a half-second apart, like the delay was intentional. The lock clicked, and the door opened without a single creak. The inside air was cold, not freezing but sharp. Sterile but not chemically. More like air that hadn't been breathed. The hallway was narrow for a house that size. Cement floor but polished like marble. Lights along the walls glowed green and blinked. 1, 2, 1, 2, like a metronome marking time. I held up my hand and signaled the others. 5 of us total. All in plain tactical, nothing that screamed federal. We moved slow, cleared corners, but there was no movement, no sound. No dogs, no private security. No one in the master quarters. We swept the east wing and found 2 kitchen staff quarters, empty beds, phones still plugged in. 1 plate of food in the sink, untouched. The plate was still warm. We should have left then. We passed a room labeled Studio B, but the door was sealed with fingerprint access. As we walked further in, something started bugging me. Every room we passed had mirrors. Big ones, but they weren't mounted like normal. They were turned inward, facing the corridor, not into the room itself. I slowed down in front of one. It looked like a full-length panel, but it wasn't showing me. It was showing a slightly delayed reflection of the hallway, like it lagged by maybe half a second. We walked past, and in the corner of my eye, I saw myself still standing there. I chalked it up to nerves. And Mallory radioed in. Passing room 4 now. Then we heard the voice crackle back. Copy, but why's the thermal log showing 6 heartbeats? We all froze. There were 5 of us. 5. We scanned the hall. Room 4 had no door, just an open entrance. Inside, it looked like a small recording booth. Padded walls, LED panel lights, a single silver microphone hanging from the ceiling with no cables. Agent Ruiz moved in first, weapon low. I followed with the scanner. No movement, nothing on night vision either. But when we looked through the glass from inside out, the hallway looked darker than before, like the light just didn't carry through the booth window. Ruiz spoke into his mic, confirming clear in room 4. The radio answered, 6 heat sources still active. You're 1 over. We pulled back into the hall, recounted still 5 of us. I checked my scanner again. The 6th signal was about 3 feet behind Mallory. You called out, behind you. He turned, gun raised. Nothing there. Then his flashlight flickered and cut out. Same with mine. We switched to headlamps. Only his stayed dead. He tapped his vest twice. Something's wrong with my cam feed. I'm getting feedback. Control tried patching through but got nothing. No sound. Just static. I turned toward room 5, which wasn't in the building layout. The wall looked solid, but something about the air in front of it felt heavier. I stepped forward, hand out. The wall shifted. Not like it opened, more like it bent, like fabric under tension. I pulled back. Mallory moved to test it himself, but the surface was solid again. He looked at me. Was that real? All I couldn't answer. We backed off and moved to the west corridor, which was supposedly the guest wing. This is where things started slipping. Agent Keene opened a linen closet, then closed it. 10 seconds later, we passed the same closet again, same towel on the floor, same open cabinet. We had looped. Without turning, I turned around to face the hallway we'd come from, and it was gone. It was the same corridor, but the blinking lights were now purple. They pulsed faster. The scanner I carried buzzed and went black. Then we heard it. A faint humming. Female voice, steady, unshaken, coming from the end of the hallway. It wasn't words, just tone. Notes drawn out like vocal warm-ups. We moved as one. Keene kept the rear. As we approached the source, we reached another doorway. No label, no frame, just a dark opening. The voice stopped. Inside, the room looked normal. Cream walls, wood floor, a grand piano with velvet padding, and a row of old microphones on a shelf. A faint light came from the ceiling, a soft blue glow. But there were no bulbs. The light came from the paint itself. Agent Ruiz moved to the piano. He pointed to a photo resting on top. It was Beyonce, young, maybe 6 or 7, sitting at a piano that looked exactly like this one. Same markings, same scratch on the lid. But the room didn't exist on the floor plan. Ruiz whispered, "This looks like her childhood room, but it's rebuilt, like exact." I picked up one of the microphones. It was cold, heavier than it looked. There was tape wrapped around the base, handwritten. Use only during rehearsal. Do not plug. Then Ruiz touched the piano keys. Nothing happened. Then the mirror in the corner started recording. I know how insane that sounds, but it was real. The mirror didn't reflect us. It started playing back footage of us entering the room seconds after we entered. We watched ourselves walk in again. Then the playback kept going, showing things we hadn't done. Keene dropping his flashlight, Mallory looking behind him and seeing someone in the doorway, me holding the microphone up to my mouth. And in the mirror I spoke, but I wasn't speaking. I dropped the mic. The mirror went black. Mallory yelled, "Let's move." We exited fast, backtracking the way we thought we'd come, but ended up at the service entrance again. Looked down. My boots were wet. Not soaked, just damp at the soles. I checked the body cam later. There was no water on the floor, not once, but the footage showed me walking through something shiny, like shallow liquid, that no one else reacted to. And that it caught. We just stopped recording at 4:13 a.m. We never found the contractor. But later that week, the company who sent him removed his name from the database. His social profiles were erased. Even the tax records, gone. And Beyonce's team, no comment. The file was marked closed. But I still get messages sometimes, anonymous, encrypted. One just said, "Rehearsal ended, but the mic is still on." Chapter 2. The studio room was still recording. We got the drives 2 days after the entry team pulled out. They were bagged, tagged, and logged by field ops, then transferred straight to our lab without passing through usual chain of custody protocols. That's the first red flag. Normally, any seized data has to be mirrored, verified, then scrubbed for embedded threats before it gets anywhere near our analysis unit. This time, the request came direct from the top. No scrub, no wait, just pal 'em up, see what's there. The drives came from what they labeled Studio C. That was the term written on the folder anyway, though there's no record of any Studio C existing on the official blueprint of the Holmby Hills property. Public plans list 2 media rooms upstairs and a digital editing suite near the pool level, but Studio C was in the basement, a basement that, until the raid, wasn't supposed to exist. 7 drives total, each one marked with a different symbol. Not numbers or letters, just symbols etched into the metal casing. Not printed, etched. Drive 1 had what looked like a small microphone. Drive 2 had a sideways eye. 3 was a broken circle. 4, a treble clef. The rest weren't symbols I recognized. Looked custom. Maybe code. They were solid-state drives, no external serial number, no visible USB or SATA ports. We had to use a frequency bridge to interface them, which, for context, is something we don't use outside of national defense ops. These were not home studio backups. This was high-grade surveillance infrastructure. My job was just to run the initial diagnostic, look for any standard audio files, flag anomalies. I didn't expect anything weird, but from the moment I powered up Drive 4, I felt it. Another full-bodied shudder. This one attempted. Low pulse tones deep in the subsonic range started vibrating through the table, not from the speakers, through the metal. I hadn't pressed play yet. The file appeared automatically. No folder structure, just a single title floating in the mainframe screen. Practice Michael Ignite 43. It didn't have a timestamp. No metadata, just that name. I copied it over to our secure playback partition and hit spacebar. The room filled with humming. Soft, almost like a woman warming up before a show. Breath control, tonal slides, all clean. It wasn't singing. Not exactly. It felt more like testing the air, like she was measuring the space between breaths. Every few seconds, there was a pause, then a deep inhale and a low vowel sound. Ooh, ah, eh. I let it run for about 20 seconds before freezing the waveform. The sound was smooth, but the waveform looked jagged, off balance, like a scream compressed into silence. I reversed the file. That's when everything started going wrong. The reversed audio sounded glitched at first, but as I adjusted the tempo, the distortion evened out. The humming had become something else. A voice. Whispering. Not mumbling, whispering. Clear as day, but buried under the tones, like a secondary track tucked just beneath the primary waveform. I boosted the signal on the lower range and isolated the mids. And there it was. Bell don't know the rehearsal is the ritual. I played it again, slower. Bell I don't know. The rehearsal is the ritual. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, hearing it loop. I flagged the file and logged it into the shared archive under code Echo Black, which is our protocol for potential psychological interference. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't just on that one drive. Over the next 12 hours, we found 4 more versions of the same file on 4 different drives, each slightly altered. Same humming, same timing, but the reversed whisper changed slightly every time. Sometimes the voice said, "The rehearsal becomes the ritual." Sometimes it said, "The ritual is always live." And in one version, the last one, it said something that made my skin crawl. Me check. I'm ready to begin now. I didn't say anything to the others at first, just kept my head down and logged what I could. But then Marcus, one of the other techs, came into the room looking pale. He'd been running spectrogram analysis on Drive 6. He sat down without speaking, opened his terminal, and typed. "Did the file speak to you?" I typed back. "You heard it too?" He didn't answer, just got up, unplugged his terminal, and left. We haven't seen him since. Day later, our lead analyst Carla started noticing something strange in her own voice memos. She said it casually at first, like a joke. Said her phone kept auto-correcting her speech-to-text recordings. She'd say one thing, but the phone typed something else. Not just typos, entire sentences she never spoke. She showed me a clip. In it, she's talking about waveform compression. Then her pitch suddenly drops, her words slow, and then, clear as day, her voice says, "I don't want to remember what I heard. I only want to sing what they left." Except she swore she never said that. I believed her. We ran a pitch analysis. Her voice had shifted mid-recording, not just in pitch, but in resonance profile. That's not supposed to happen. Vocal resonance is like a fingerprint. You can't just change it. We tried to scrub the audio files, all of them. Standard military protocol is 7 pass over rate. But every time we deleted one, the system duplicated it. Not in the same folder, not even on the same drive. The files would regenerate, hidden in subdirectories we hadn't created, and each version was different. One had a child's voice humming. Another had no sound at all, just silence. But when we ran it through spectrogram, we saw a signature image appear in the waveform. A human face, smiling, blurred like it was underwater. Carla had a breakdown 3 days later. She showed up to the lab barefoot, hair wet, whispering into her elbow like it was a mic. She's in psychiatric evaluation now. They're saying she's not responsive to direct questions, but keeps repeating one line over and over. "You don't get to record them. They record you." I wish I could say this was all superstition. I'm not new to this field. I've worked on deepfake cleanup, digital mindware extractions, even ops involving corrupted black site data. But I've never seen anything like this. These files weren't just recordings. They were responses, as if the system wasn't documenting reality but shaping it, sculpting sound around thought, taking intention and bending it into something else. We ran voice modeling tests to find out who the source voice was. I knew what the answer would be, but protocol required verification. All 5 drives gave the same match. Primary source ID, Knowles, Beyonce, Giselle. Confidence rating, 99.9%. It was her voice, but deeper, older, like it had passed through layers of echo. And every version ended the same way. Better umbrong long, fading into silence. Then a click. Not a click from a mic, a tongue click, the kind you make when you're about to start speaking but change your mind. I tried to report it, sent the full logs to our project lead, but the next morning my clearance was downgraded, my workstation access revoked. I was moved to secondary file support. No explanation. I don't care anymore, because I made a copy of the last file. I know I shouldn't have. It was stupid, dangerous, but I couldn't stop thinking about what it meant. The rehearsal is the ritual. What were they rehearsing? And what were they trying to make us say? I listen to the file every night now, just once, never twice in a row. But something changed last night. The voice didn't whisper this time. It sang, Chapter 3, The Girl from the Sound Team Never Left. It started as a random TikTok in my feed, just some fan-made clip, one of those aesthetic tour recaps, black and white shots of rehearsal stages, slow fades, subtle audio overlays of Beyonce breathing through warm-ups. But it was the caption that made me stop scrolling. Where did Nicolette go? Hadn't heard that name in years. Nicolette was one of ours. She worked with me on the 2019 homecoming prep crew right before the Coachella run. Small girl, always had her hair in a messy braid, wore that same green hoodie even in July. Smart as hell, could rewire a vocal rig in under a minute. She wasn't famous, wasn't trying to be. Just wanted the gear to work and the artist to sound right. She loved sound, but more than that, she understood it. Not just the tech side, the feel of it, the air between notes, the way mics responded to breath. I used to tease her, say she treated her equipment like it had a soul. Looking back, maybe it did. The clip on TikTok showed Nicolette in one of the rehearsal studios, crouched down by a rack unit, adjusting a set of weird black gloss microphones I didn't recognize. The audio was muffled, but you could still make out her saying something. These pick up intention, not just sound. It's like singing with your soul open. That wasn't just poetic, it was something she actually believed. She'd talk about intention-based resonance like it was a real field. Claimed Beyonce's team had developed mic tech that didn't just hear your voice, it felt what you were trying to say. That same day, Nicolette got invited to a private retreat at the Holby Hills estate. Not the usual big rehearsal thing. This was small, invite-only. Audio techs, choreography leads, a couple of the main backup singers. It was supposed to be a weekend of vocal alignment, whatever that means. She never came back. I'm not being dramatic. She literally never came back. Her badge never scanned out. Her bank account went inactive 2 weeks later, and her apartment still had all her stuff in it. Nothing packed, no goodbye note. Her phone pinged one last time from the mansion's side service corridor at 3:18 a.m. Then nothing. The label put out some boilerplate PR line about her taking a sabbatical for personal creative growth. But she didn't even have a label deal. She was contract crew, audio tech, disposable in their eyes. That's when I started saving things. Screenshots, schedules, equipment logs. At the time, I didn't know why. Just felt wrong to delete them. But when that TikTok surfaced, I opened the folder again. 5 years untouched, buried in my cloud backups. And right there, in one of the clips I'd saved from backstage, you could hear her voice, Nicolette, talking into one of those black gloss mics again. I don't think these are for recording anymore. I think they're for remembering. The rest of the clip cut to static. Not glitch, actual static, like a radio detuning. I stitched together the TikTok with my own footage and posted it on a throwaway account. No tags, no hashtags, just a title, Nicolette, audio engineer, rehearsed in silence. I thought maybe 5 people would see it. Within 2 hours, it had 10,000 views, then 50, then over 200,000. Comments flooded in. Most were confused. A few claimed to remember her. Some swore they saw her in the background of Coachella Night 2. Others said, no, that wasn't her, it was someone who looked like her. They pointed out that the girl in those shots never blinked. Then I got a DM from someone I hadn't heard from in years. It was Riley, Nicolette's old roommate. She sent me a voice message. Her voice cracked like she'd been crying. She stopped speaking. Literally. Like she'd try, but nothing came out, no sound, like her throat was moving, but there was nothing behind it. We thought it was medical, got her checked, everything came back normal. Doctors said it was psychogenic mutism, like trauma-based silence. But she wasn't traumatized. She was obsessed. There was a pause in the message. Then, she said she didn't want to make noise anymore. She said it wouldn't be hers. I asked Riley if she still had anything of Nicolette's. She sent me a photo of a notebook they found after she vanished. One page was filled edge to edge with the same phrase written over and over in tiny, cramped handwriting. Silence is part of the contract. Break it, and the mic won't return you. That line haunted me. I remembered back in early 2020, during a long rehearsal stretch in New Jersey, we were riding in one of the crew buses and someone pointed out a weird sticker near the backseat window. It had no logo, no color, just black letters on clear backing. Same phrase. Silence is part of the contract. Break it, and the mic won't return you. I thought it was a joke, maybe some NDA joke the tour managers cooked up. Now I wasn't so sure. More footage started surfacing, tiny things, blurry shots of rehearsal rooms, unreleased backing tracks, a low-res screen recording from someone claiming to be on Beyonce's vocal comp team, showing an unreleased track labeled Nico_stem_final_take3 wath. That file never made it to the public albums, no mention of it anywhere official, but audio geeks online started dissecting it. What they found was wrong. The vocal stem had no lead voice, only background harmonies, but the harmonies weren't consistent. Each playback rendered slightly differently, like the chords were reacting to the listener, as if the track was rewriting itself based on your intent. They listened with headphones just once. At first, it was a soft D major pad, warm, almost comforting, but halfway through, a breathy high note slipped in, not part of the harmony, a single syllable. "My name," whispered clear as day. I slammed my laptop shut. The file was gone the next time I looked, vanished from cache, not even in the recovery partition. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. But a week later, I got another message. No text, just a 5-second clip. It was Nicolette, sitting in front of a mic, not moving. Then her lips parted, and no sound came out. Line. But the waveform moved. I don't know what's real anymore. I tried finding her name on the union logs again. Nothing. I looked up her driver's license. Cancelled. His social? Scrubbed. The only thing left was a booking receipt from April 2019. Car service to the Holmby Hills address. And in the notes section, one line. Client instructed not to speak upon arrival. It's been 5 years. Sometimes, when I pass rehearsal rooms or walk by a studio late at night, I think I hear her humming. Not singing, just a low, endless hum. Like she's still warming up, still trying to say something. But the mic won't return her. Chapter 4. Mirror 6 is not responding. It started with a folder. Just a link, no explanation, no signature. The subject line in the email was blank. The sender's address was scrambled gibberish with a .proton mail suffix. The body of the message only said, "If you leak this, I was never here. Mirror 6 is where it broke first." I opened the link on an isolated machine. It directed to a zip archive titled interior_reflections_1213. Inside were schematics, service logs, internal memos, and something marked active_monitor_footage mauve. All of it stamped with the logo of a private firm I'd worked with back in 2017, Aegis Spatial Memory Design. They weren't decorators, they were engineers. The kind of firm you bring in when you're not designing a home, you're designing a system. I'd met them through a project in Abu Dhabi. They specialized in sensory adaptive environments. Mirrors, mostly, but not ordinary ones. These were reflective surfaces embedded with directional microphones, pressure sensors, and AI-rendered SSDs that could remember a room's acoustic and visual patterns. They were built to respond to thought, movement, and tone. In theory, a person could stand in front of one and have the mirror learn how they see themselves, then play that version back when the real one is no longer available. At the time, I didn't ask too many questions. You don't when you're working with clients like her. Beyonce hired me to help redesign the interior flow of her Holmby Hills estate. The goal wasn't aesthetics, it was resonance. She wanted the space to breathe in harmony, whatever that meant. Her only specific request was that the mirrors had to be calibrated for intention feedback. That phrase again? Intention. There were 13 mirrors ordered, each with its own behavioral script. They were not installed randomly. Each had a name and function. Mirror 1 was placed in the rehearsal chamber. It was meant to amplify correct vocal tone by visually adjusting the singer's reflection based on pitch purity. Mirror 2 was installed in the West Garden corridor, programmed to archive movement patterns. Mirror 3 was silent, used only for light calibration. Mirror 4 was aesthetic. Mirror 5 was social. It could parse multiple faces and construct composite reactions. But Mirror 6 was different from the beginning. It was installed in the east hallway, the same corridor that led to what we later called Studio C, the unlisted chamber below ground. I never went in there. No one did, except her. The logs in the leaked folder showed each mirror's service record, calibrations, reboots, software patches. Mirror 6 had the most logs by far, dozens of entries, but one stood out, a red-flagged ticket dated October 9th, 2021. Issue noted as non-responsive to reality input, reflection mismatch. Subject appears unrendered, recommend shutdown. That line made me pause. Non-responsive to reality input? I'd never heard that terminology before. Then I opened the video. It was security feed, pulled directly from Mirror 6's internal SSD. Date stamp, April 5th, 2022. Time, 2:41 a.m. The footage showed a still hallway, lights dim, no movement for the first minute. Then, footsteps. Someone walks past, but the reflection doesn't show them. The hallway remains empty in the mirror. Not glitched, not delayed, empty. The person, a woman, moves past the frame. Her shoes make sound. Her shadow hits the floor, but she is invisible in the glass. Then, 20 seconds later, the reflection flickers, and two Beyoncés appear. Not side by side in the frame, in the mirror. They are walking down the hallway together. One turns and looks at the glass. The other does not. Neither version corresponds to the real-world figure who passed seconds before. The image stutters, then stabilizes, then freezes. That's where the footage ends. I closed the file, trembling. Back when I worked the project, I remember asking one of the Aegis techs, a guy named Sebastian, what the mirrors actually recorded, like where the data went. He told me it was internal only, no cloud. Each mirror had its own drive, its own encryption. The data wasn't meant to be watched, it was meant to stabilize identity. I laughed at the time, thought it was some tech bro nonsense. But he looked serious when he said, "We store the self, so it doesn't get overridden." I didn't get it then. I do now. There was another file in the archive, a memo from the project lead to Bianca's legal team. It was labeled Function Query, Mirror 6 Behavior. The note read, "Subject continues to report unrecognized reflections during unmonitored hours. Complaints include mirror showing what's next, not what's now. Recommend reboot or ritualized recalibration." Ritualized recalibration. That phrase chilled me. Attached to the memo was an image, a close-up of Mirror 6 during maintenance. Written on the back of the panel in black marker was a sentence. She only sees herself when no one else is looking. I tried to verify the email leak, reached out to old contacts. Dead numbers. One bounced back with a robotic auto-reply. Employee access terminated for failure to comply with non-visual clause. What the hell is a non-visual clause? Then I remembered something that happened during the build-out. One of the workers refused to go back into the East Wing, said the mirror was wrong. He didn't explain, just handed me his clipboard and walked off the job, left all his tools behind. His clipboard had a note at the bottom corner, doodled between measurements. Don't face Mirror 6 alone, not if you still dream. At the time, I thought it was a joke. Now I'm not so sure. I've heard the rumors, just like everyone else, that Beyonce has twin energy, that Sasha Fierce wasn't just a stage persona, it was a mirrored fragment, that her mansion isn't a home, it's a reflection lab. People online say the mirrors are for safety, that she uses them to test different versions of herself before releasing a new one to the public. But what if it's not just image control? What if the mirrors don't reflect her? What if they store her? There's one more note I found in the dump. A service ticket from December 2022. It was marked critical with red security flags. The issue read, Mirror 6 now displaying full room content with no local input. Estimated reality drift 6 to 9 seconds. Reality drift. The mirror wasn't showing the present anymore. It was showing something just ahead of it. A ghost of the near future. I don't work for them anymore. I walked away after the third payment cleared. I figured, job done, keep quiet, move on. But I still remember that feeling. Every time I passed Mirror 6 during the install. Like I wasn't just seeing myself. I was being measured. The thank you protocol. It started with a red envelope. No stamp, no return address. Just slid under my door sometime between midnight and 3 in the morning. I almost tossed it. Figured it was another press kit, maybe from a startup music brand or some underground artist trying to get coverage. But when I opened it, the first thing I noticed was that the paper inside wasn't paper. It was thick, glossy, almost like film stock. There were no logos, no letterheads. Just a single phrase printed in a typewriter-style font at the top. The thank you protocol, internal use only, not for distribution. And then beneath that, 3 short lines. Your access was not a mistake. If they stop saying it, it stops protecting them. If they say it wrong, it doesn't count. At first, I thought it was a prank, one of those fan conspiracy things. I'd written a piece the year before about disappearing writers in the music industry, ghost lyricists who got scrubbed from credits after filing for higher royalties. The article had drawn attention, especially from those who like to think there's a secret code behind every record deal. So I figured this envelope was just more bait. But the second page changed everything. It was a rider, a real one. A contract addendum, printed on standard legal formatting, with numbered clauses and marginal notations, except the artist's name was redacted, just a black bar across where the name should be. The first clause read, 1.4, Gratitude Compliance Requirement. All collaborators under this agreement must fulfill annual verbal acknowledgement, expressed clearly and directly in the physical presence of the primary artist. Digital substitutions or public thank yous will not fulfill Clause 1.4 unless pre-approved in writing. And right beneath that, 1.5, Dissonance Clause. Failure to express gratitude in the approved tone may result in resonance interference, loss of publishing entitlement, and breach status without financial remedy. Resonance interference? That term doesn't exist in any contract law I've ever read, and I've reviewed hundreds. I checked every music law digest, industry database, legal precedent, arbitration file. Nothing. It doesn't legally mean anything. But in this document, it meant everything. I followed the trail backwards, started calling in favors, reaching out to former PR assistants, talent handlers, junior managers. Most didn't respond. A few warned me to back off. But one of them, a former junior brand liaison from Parkwood Entertainment, offered to talk, off the record. We met in a diner just outside New Rochelle. She wore a hoodie and sunglasses even though we were indoors. She slid a flash drive across the table, said it was all she could give me. "There's a list," she said. "People who didn't say it. People who tried to say it wrong. That clause isn't for legal protection. It's to keep the circle closed." I asked what she meant by the circle. She said nothing, just stood up and left. The drive had 5 folders, all with names I recognized. Folder 1, Frank K. Studio Leak 2017. Frank had worked with Beyonce on early demos before Lemonade. In a podcast appearance, he was asked if he'd ever collaborate with her again. He smiled, paused, and said, I got what I needed out of that. That was it. 3 weeks later, his unreleased EP was shelved indefinitely. His manager was fired. His distribution deal disappeared. Within 6 months, he was posting poetry on Tumblr. Nothing since. Folder 2, Rhea X Grammys 2019. Rhea was up for Best New Artist. During her speech, she thanked her team, her mother, and every woman who came before me. Not once did she mention Beyonce, despite being mentored by her label for 2 years. The next day, her scheduled performance with a major festival was canceled due to technical issues. Within a year, she moved back to St. Paul, deleted all her socials. Folder 3, Ellis James Tour Video 2021. Ellis opened for Beyonce once. In a backstage vlog, he jokingly said, "I thought I'd get a handshake. All I got was a sound check." The video went viral for the wrong reasons. Within days, Ellis posted a teary apology, then another, and another. By month's end, his music was pulled from all playlists. He now runs a vinyl resale page in Ohio, quietly. Folder 4, Mira Dev, YouTube clip 2020. Mira was a rising R&B star. In one interview, the host prompted her, "You want to thank Beyonce too, right?" Mira smiled awkwardly and said, She's cool and all, but I don't really see her as a personal influence." 3 days later, her label dropped her. A leaked internal memo cited conflicts with upstream alliances. That phrase appears nowhere in her termination clause. Folder 5, Nicki M, Red Carpet, 2015. And this one I remembered on my own. Nicki Minaj on the carpet at the BET Awards. She was asked who she wanted to thank. Her answer came out weird, not her usual energy. She paused, looked to the side, then said, "I want to thank my beautiful friend Beyonce for always guiding the light." It felt off. Like she wasn't in control of the words, like they were being pulled from her. It was the same phrase Beyonce used in her Grammy speeches every year. "I want to thank my beautiful husband, beautiful friend." Like it had to be said that way, or it didn't count. I checked comments online. People had noticed it too. Whole YouTube threads asking if Nicki looked scared, if she looked coached. Some said her eye twitched right before she spoke. Others pointed out she'd never performed with Beyonce again after that year. The flash drive also had one audio clip, just labeled resonance_fail_clip. I clicked play. The audio was corrupted, chopped, stuttering. But in the middle, a man's voice said clearly, "I thanked her, I swear I did, but they said the tone was wrong. How can a thank you be wrong?" Then a long silence. Then what sounded like a reversed vocal harmony. layered 5 times over. I stopped the playback, and I realized something. Beyonce always thanks the same people in the same way. Her husband, her children, her God. Always in that order. Always with a certain breath pattern. Always with a pause between my and the noun. I want to thank my beautiful husband. I want to thank my beautiful children. Every time, there's rhythm in it, like a spell. Like if she says it wrong, something breaks. And if you don't say it at all, you vanish it. Chapter 6. They were looking for the freezer room. Date, March 16th, 2025. Location, Holmby Hills Residence, Sublevel 3. Entry point, Lower East Maintenance Corridor. Room identifier, Studio Temp, unlisted. Entry team was advised off record to locate a specific subchamber beneath the primary recording floor. Initial briefing referred to it as Studio Temp, though no structural blueprints confirmed the room's existence. Instructions were verbal only, no paperwork, no digital trail. The request came from a senior contact at the Department of Private Sector Surveillance, someone we weren't supposed to name in the reports. I read that paragraph 4 times before I allowed myself to believe it was real. I've seen odd rooms before, panic rooms, hidden vaults, secret tunnels built into celebrity homes for privacy or paranoia, but never one like this. Never a room so carefully erased from every document, as if just acknowledging it would break some kind of unspoken rule. We accessed the sublevel through what looked like a simple maintenance hatch behind the wine cellar. The hatch led to a narrow concrete stairwell that dropped below the lowest level on the house plan. Cold air leaked up from beneath, not frigid, but sharp and unnatural. The keypad at the bottom wasn't standard security. It was biometric, voice print only. One of the agents had to play a recording they recovered from Beyonce's old press interviews just to trigger the latch. She had to say the word, stillness. The door opened into total silence. We didn't hear the creak. Didn't hear the hinges. Just sudden pressure in the ears. Like stepping off an airplane. The room beyond was jet black. Floor, walls, ceiling, everything was lined in a matte surface that looked like obsidian but felt like soft frost. You could breathe in there, but it felt like the air didn't move, like sound didn't bounce. Every step was swallowed, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, the kind that feels held in place. And in the center of the room, a single white chair, facing the wall. Nothing else. No lights, no equipment, except for the broken lav mic lying on the floor. It was disconnected, its cord frayed like it had been yanked too hard. The capsule itself was intact but looked frozen solid, covered in fine crystals that hadn't melted even after being brought into the lab upstairs. The report notes that the mic was still picking up a signal, but it was looping. A breath sound, repeating every 11 seconds, even when not plugged in. At the base of the chair there was a sheet of paper, old, yellowed but not stained, just aged, like it had been waiting a long time. The lyrics on the page didn't match any known Beyonce track. No official release, no demo leak, just a single verse handwritten. I sang once into the cold, and it held my sound like glass. If I speak again, I break it, so I hum and hope it lasts. That was all. No title, no chorus, just that. They also found a locked refrigeration unit embedded into the far wall, seamless, almost invisible. Took them over an hour to open it without damaging the seal. Inside, 6 glass jars. Clear, each filled with pale blue saline, and in each jar, suspended in liquid, was a vocal cord. Not a full larynx, not harvested muscle, just the cords. Thin, pink, preserved. Each jar labeled with a date. Not a name. The earliest was dated 2002. The latest, October 2023. I know what that means even if no one else says it out loud. And I know what Keon said on that podcast last year. I remember it because it was pulled offline within 24 hours. He was Beyonce's intern during the Sasha Fierce era, mostly tasked with running errands, prepping mics, making sure her water was cold and her headphones were warm. But he saw things, heard things. He told the host, "You ever heard of temperature-corrected mics? Beyonce uses cold to trap echoes. Real thing, you hit the right chill and the sound gets caught like it freezes in place." The host laughed, thought he was joking, but Keon didn't smile. "The room's not a freezer," he said. "It's a vault for sounds that shouldn't escape." The podcast disappeared that night. So did Keon's socials. I only managed to save a ripped transcript before it vanished completely. There was one last quote that stuck with me. "She doesn't sing to perform anymore. Not in there. She sings to leave it behind. Every note she doesn't want in the world, she locks in that room." The transcripts don't say what they did with the jars. Official record says, "Evidence transferred to cold storage facility, status pending." But there's no record of the facility's name. And the evidence locker photo? It's just a black square with the words "Data withheld, level 3 compliance." They're not treating this like evidence. They're treating it like radiation. I talked to one of the junior agents off record. Asked him if he ever went back to Studio Temp after that first sweep. He said he did, once. But the room had changed. He said the walls were warm. He said the chair was facing the door now. And he said the mic, the same broken lav mic, it was gone. In its place was a new sheet of paper, different handwriting, a new verse. "If they listen, they become. If they repeat, they belong. But if they forget to thank me, the cold won't let them go." Chapter 7. This isn't about crime, it's about control. I wasn't supposed to write any of this down, and definitely not to share it. But I need to say it somewhere, just in case I don't come back the same way I went in. If anyone ever asks what this case was really about, I hope they find this. The truth is, this isn't about crime. Not drugs, not trafficking, not anything you can pin to an arrest. It's about control. The first time they briefed us on the Beyonce property, it was framed like a missing persons case. A contractor, last seen entering the mansion's lower levels and never checking out. No badge swipe, no camera trace. That's all we were told. But then the real instructions came in, quietly, off record. One of the senior supervisors pulled me aside and said, "We're not looking to blow this open. We're here to keep the signal inside." At the time, I thought it was metaphor. I've been in the Bureau long enough to know there are cases you solve, and then there are cases you seal. This was one of the latter. From the moment we stepped foot on that property, I knew we weren't investigating anything. We were containing it. It didn't feel hostile. Not exactly. It felt tuned. Like the house wasn't built to be lived in. It was built to listen. Every corridor, every panel, every room. It all gave this strange feeling like it was waiting for you to speak, or think, or remember something you weren't supposed to. It wasn't obvious at first, just small things. One night, I took a wrong turn trying to find the lower access stairwell. Ended up in this long hallway I hadn't seen on the blueprints. Dim lights, soft blue walls. Everything felt like it had been padded, like a recording studio but with no gear. And then I heard something. Not through my earpiece, not outside. Inside. It was me, my own voice, singing. But not any song I knew, or at least not any song I remembered knowing. It was this simple melody, probably something from when I was a kid, one of those little made-up tunes you hum when you're alone. Except I wasn't humming, I wasn't moving my mouth, I was just hearing it in my own chest, like it was bouncing around inside me, like the room had found it and sent it back. I didn't tell anyone. A few nights later, one of the other agents said he saw something weird on the camera playback from the West Wing. We were reviewing footage from an hour before. It was clean, uneventful, but Flynn hit pause, leaned in, and pointed. There was someone walking through a side hallway, not any of us. It was an older woman, 70s maybe, hair pulled back, slow steps, a kind of limp. No security badge, no tactical gear, just a green blouse and sandals. Flynn stared at the screen and said, "That's my mom." I thought he was joking, but then he pulled up a photo on his phone, an old family picture taken back in the 90s. It was her. Same shirt, same expression, same everything. She passed away years ago. We ran the footage through filters, time codes lined up. The camera had recorded someone walking through that hallway, but there was no heat signature, no movement alarm, just visual input, like a shadow wearing a memory. And I know how that sounds. But this house, it doesn't record things the way we do. It reflects them. It brings them forward, not as memories, not as hallucinations, as echoes. Not echoes of sound, echoes of who you were. That's when I started looking into older reports. I dug through years of archived cases that had been sealed under labels like Level 3 drift and containment only. I found properties around the world with the same signature, buildings owned by creatives, architects, musicians, where something about the design began to interfere with people's perception of time and self. Some of them talked about places that made people feel déjà vu constantly. Some mentioned dreams that bled into waking hours, but they all circled around one idea, that certain spaces could amplify a person's internal signal. And Beyonce's mansion, it's the strongest one we've seen. I think she built it that way on purpose. Every material in that house is chosen for resonance. Every surface absorbs and redirects energy. It's like walking through a tuned instrument, not just acoustically, emotionally. There's this theory I came across once in a fringe report. They called it influence radiation. The idea is, certain people don't just affect their fans, they affect the structure of thought. Their energy, their voice, their presence starts to ripple outward and shape how people think, what they believe, even what they remember. You hear a lyric in a song and suddenly remember a relationship you never had. You watch a performance and feel like it was made for you, even though it wasn't. That's not marketing. That's gravity. And if that kind of influence isn't anchored, it starts to bend reality around it. People forget things, repeat things, become copies of something they can't name. Most people who radiate like that fall apart. They can't hold the signal. They crash. But Beyonce, she holds it. She contains it. She doesn't let the energy leak. Because she rehearses everything. Not just choreography, not just vocals. She rehearses being different versions of herself, shaped by the mirrors, recorded by the floors, tested through feedback in every wall. This house isn't a stage. It's a system. One of the lower field reports logged something strange from the studio temp scans. It was a faint loop playing on repeat, too low to hear but picked up by the sensors. The waveform wasn't noise. It was structured. We ran it through a few converters. What we got was a line of text buried in the sound. It said, "What they believe I become." I haven't told anyone this part. Last night, while checking the sub-level wiring logs, I found a room labeled Echo Holding. It's not on any map. I never entered it. But when I walked past, I heard my name whispered, twice, from inside. It wasn't a threat, it was a reminder. I don't know what happens to people who stay too long in that house. I don't know what happens to people who remember the things they weren't supposed to hear. But if you ever get close to something like this, something that pulls your own voice out of you and hands it back, don't repeat it. Don't hum along. And if the room gets quiet, don't fill the silence. Let it echo. Chapter 8. She left the mic on. It wasn't scheduled, wasn't announced, no teaser, no countdown. It just appeared. At 3:03 in the morning on April 2nd, 2025, Beyonce's official live stream channel went live. No warning, no title, just a black screen. 43 seconds later it vanished. But not before a few thousand people saw it. Or maybe felt it. The screen stayed dark the whole time. No image, no color. Just the faint flicker of digital static barely visible along the edges, like a pulse struggling to sync. At first, nothing happened. For the first 10 seconds, the stream was silent. Then a chair creaked. Wood against floor. Slow. Uneven. Then came the humming. Low at first, like someone testing the shape of the room with their breath. A soft, deliberate tone. It held steady for a few seconds, then wavered. The kind of humming that didn't come from a melody. More like someone tuning the air around them. After that, silence. And then her voice. No music, no reverb, no filter. Just Beyonce. Clear, calm. I don't want them to hear it all, she said. He paused. Just enough to obey. The stream glitched, not a buffer pause. Something else. A shift. Like the pixels twisted themselves midstream, stretching into corners that shouldn't have existed. And then the comments started flooding in. What is this? Is this Liv? Was that her? And no music, no video, just humming? Yo, that sounded like her. If she said something about obeying, WTF. Why is the waveform doing that? Guys, that shape looks like a face. Because it did. At the 32-second mark, a waveform appeared in the center of the screen. It wasn't centered in the UI like usual. It was floating, subtle, almost like a visual bleed from the audio feed. But it moved like it had purpose. Each wave curve stretched and folded until it formed something round. A face. Smiling. Then it flattened, reset, and reformed. For this time, it spelled something. Not clearly, not cleanly, but in that squashed, unstable text you only see in glitch art. Distorted, but intentional. Say it. That's when the stream cut. No outro. No, this stream has ended. Just sudden, quiet disappearance. And for a while, people treated it like a prank. Fan theories blew up on TikTok. Audio engineers tried to recreate the waveform to prove it was fake. Tech forums argued over whether it had been a hacked stream or just a deep fake marketing drop. But none of that explains what happened next. Because 5 days later, a woman named Denise, just a regular viewer, not a stan, not a tech person, posted a screen recording of her replaying the archived livestream from her device. The original upload was gone by then, pulled down almost immediately after it ended. But she'd saved a local copy. She said she watched it alone late at night, headphones on, volume low. And somewhere near the 20-second mark, right after the humming, she heard something she hadn't expected. She heard herself humming. Not loud, not layered over. It was underneath the original track. Her exact voice, slightly delayed, echoing the same pitch. Same breath pattern. She didn't remember doing that. She said she never hummed while watching, never made a sound. But the file didn't lie. She wasn't alone. Other people came forward too. People from completely different countries with completely different audio setups. They all reported the same thing. The stream played back with a strange underlayer, a faint sound, not random. Their voice. Somehow recorded, somehow looped in. People said they felt off afterward. Not scared, exactly. Just altered. Some said they found themselves humming that same note days later without realizing it. Others said they kept waking up at 3:03 in the morning, hearing their own voice in the dark. And one person, a sound engineer from Seoul, said his toddler daughter, who'd never watched the stream, started whispering the word "say it" while playing alone in her room. She didn't know those words before. There's no proof any of it happened. Not in the traditional sense. No logs, no metadata, nothing you can drag into a timeline and say, here's where it all went wrong. But some things don't leave traces. Some things leave resonance. And now the conversation's shifted. This wasn't a leak. It was a test. A pulse sent out from somewhere deep inside that mansion. Not to be heard, to be felt. Just long enough, just sharp enough to enter us. Because maybe it was never about her being louder than everyone else. Maybe it was just about being the first to hum, the first to imprint, the first voice to wrap itself around our thoughts before we could even speak. She didn't need to sing. She just needed us to listen once.